Well, hey everybody, Palm Tree Life here. Looking forward to this beginner's guide on Crusader Kings 3. I've really enjoyed playing this game, getting to know this game, and I'm looking forward to hopefully teaching some beginners on how to play this game, because I definitely want more people playing it. I think it's a lot of fun. And even along the way, I'm sure that there's going to be people commenting where I'm going to learn some things from you guys that maybe I just missed, or there's a different way to look at it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Now, when you go into the new game, the first place you're going to start is you're going to be choosing whether to start in 867 or 1066. You can definitely choose some of the characters that are already in existence, whether in 1066 or 867. You can do all the achievements and stuff like that. For the purposes of this beginner's guide, though, we're just going to play as any ruler in 867, and we're actually going to create our own character, and we're going to start in 867. Basically, the biggest difference between 867 and 1066 is the development of the world. In 867, it would make sense that it's not as developed, cultures aren't as developed, nations aren't as developed. There's a lot more like smaller factions, and there's potential for more of them to split off. We'll get into some of that. But we're going to start earlier just so you can see more of the playthrough. From this, you can really choose anything and go your own direction. It's pretty basic. It can go however you would like. That's what I like a game like this. There's endless things you can do. And so you'll learn some of those, but we're just going to try to get the basics in this one. So let's start off with game rules. Let's start off with game rules. We want to, you can choose whatever you like. If you're familiar with playing games like this, you may know what you already like. Some of the ones that I did shift and change that maybe you would be interested in is I changed Hungarian migration to historical. I just wanted it to be historical. And as you can see, whenever you switch this, it will explain like what that does to your game. Right underneath it, it'll give a description of it. And so we're going to keep it on historical. I generally leave generate families off. The reason I leave that off is if you go into a game and a ruler doesn't have a spouse or a family, they'll just generate it for you. And when I go in, I want the opportunity to try to arrange marriages and things with families that are not already generated. And so I try to steer away from that. That's just a personal preference, though. And then same here, personal preference. On diplomatic range, I do restricted. It just makes more sense to me that if we're playing in a nation like Ghana, which is where we're going to start for this guide, it would make sense that when you're starting in Ghana, you can't really have diplomatic relations with Europe. Like at some point you do, because as you expand or as your influence grows or as your dynasty would grow, it would make sense that you would have diplomatic range to there, but not at the beginning. So I restrict that just so it's easier. And honestly, if you're playing in Scandinavia or Northern Europe or something, you're probably going to want to restrict this because the Scandinavian, the Norse tribes, they can mess up a game quickly if you don't restrict the diplomatic range. So it's just preference, though. Do whatever you need to do there. We're going to apply those. And then we're going to choose our nation, which is Ghana. Now, it's the reason we're going to choose Ghana is they start off with a kingdom, which, as you can see here, there's not many. Like Kanem there has a kingdom, but there's not many kingdoms in Western Africa. Like, you got to go a long way before you would come in contact with something like Kanem or Kanem, however you say that. I apologize if I'm completely butchering that. But as you get into, you're kind of the big brother that can just take care of business around you as you need to. And so it's a good beginner game because you are basically the most powerful there. Now, with power, there comes difficulty. And so you got to be aware of some of those things, but we'll walk through that. We are going to create our own ruler after choosing that. And once again, you can choose any nation. In fact, even if you choose a nation and you wanted to play inside of a nation, you can even choose a lower ruler inside so we can be the king. You could go to a lower ruler that's a duke. You could even go to a count in some of the other areas of the world, but we're going to start off as the king. So let's create our own ruler. To be effective in creating your own ruler, you need to understand your culture. You need to understand what's going on around you a little bit. And so as you become familiar with more of the nations and cultures around you, it'll be much easier. I would choose male because in the Seninke culture, it's a male preference or male-dominated culture. And so you're going to want to make sure that you have a male that can hold the titles that they need to, make the decisions they need to, and there's not a negative effect in view towards you within that culture, especially in the early game. When you're starting in 867, it is really important to get a good base under you. That first 50 to 100 years of your game can really set you up for a lot of wins later on in the game, or it can really penalize you where you're going to be trying to make up for it for the rest of your game. So you want to start off as strong as you can, and so when you create your own character, you want to make sure you're creating a character that is really benefiting you, at least in a beginner mode game. As you want to try things that are harder, yeah, you can try to start off as a female. You can try different things, but in the purpose of this play, we want to set ourselves up for the best possible scenario in the early game, because this character we're going to have for probably somewhere between the first 50 and 80 years, depending on how long they live. If we can avoid getting murdered or something like that, or killed in battle, we're going to have them for a while, and so we get to set them up for a win early on. And then sexual orientation, I'm going to choose heterosexual. The biggest reason I'm doing that is because I'm not going to have any player heirs to start the game, and I want to make sure that within the arranged marriage and potential concubines that I would have, I want to make sure that we're having as many children as I can to set myself up to have plenty of player heirs, because in a tribal culture, it can be interesting if you don't have some heirs, or you have very few. You can lose an early game if you're not careful, because you'll run out of characters to play as heirs. And so you want to be aware of that. So name, my name's Tim, so we're just going to roll with that. And then our dynasty is going to be Palm Tree Life Dynasty. Now, I think at some point they're going to switch this off of randomized and let you actually develop your own coat of arms, but we'll just, that looks good. I like that one. There's kind of a palm tree esqueness to that coat of arms, so we'll go with that. And in our realm, we'll just leave the flag the same as it all. You can reset the coat of arms for your realm. It doesn't matter. We're going to leave it as it is. Now you're going to see customization points. This is how many points you can go up to 400 if you want to stay in the achievement world. If you don't care and you just want to build a max character, and you don't care about Iron Man or achievements, you can make this whatever you want. But we're going to stay within the 400 just to show you what that would look like. I'm going to go to the age 16. Now, you are considered a child if you're under 16. As soon as you turn 16, you're viewed as an adult. You can get married. You can actually rule as an adult. You can make adult decisions. And if you're a child, you cannot, which does play into this, that children, you can be penalized if you're ruling as a child, and sometimes it has to happen that your heir is just too young. They're under 16, but it is the heir that you have, and you just have to roll with it because it's important to keep playing. But it does penalize you. It does give you a disadvantage if you are playing as a child, which I think would be accurate in the world as it is. If you're a child trying to rule with other adults that want your throne, it would make sense that it would be difficult to rule within that. On a weight level, we're just going to kind of keep it in the middle. It's not going to matter. One thing I do want to remind is this game is not as much a map painting game, which, I mean, you can paint the map pretty far if you really, really want to over the course of the game, but it's really not a map painting game. It's more of a dynasty game. It really is focused on your dynasty and having your house and your lineage spread out over a large area and become rulers in a large area. So it's not as much about our player character being the ruler of like all of Africa. It's not as much about that. It's more about my descendants are all rulers over all of Africa. And so there's a lot of us that are positioned in several different cultures, several different religions, several different nations, all ruling at the same time. It's much more about your dynasty than it is about a specific like nation ruling everything. All right, let's jump into education here. So there are 5 specific education traits. You can see these. We've got intrigue. So, and you can see the different star levels here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 star levels. The higher the star level is, the better the education. Okay, and so this is important to know how educated it really does show how good your character can be, but also when you're educating a child or you're taking on a ward, it shows how well the ability you have to teach them. So it's probably unlikely that if you're a 1-star intrigue that you're going to teach a child and they're going to be a 4-star intrigue. They might be a 2, maybe a 3 if they're just naturally gifted at it, but it's unlikely that they'll climb up. It's more likely that a 4 could take somebody that's lower and make them a little bit better. So if they were naturally a 1-star, they might become a 2-star because they had a really good teacher. And so that's really important in the grand scheme of things. So intrigue is all about the ability to influence and uncover plots and schemes. This is very important. You can conquer nations more easily through this way. You can find out secrets. You can blackmail people for money or for position or for titles as a result of finding things out. So this is an important aspect of the game. Most people don't go this route because it's more submersive. You've got to be sneaky, and more people just like to attack things, but it is a big part of the game. Then you have diplomacy. So if you want to charm or negotiate or persuade other characters, this would kind of be your world. If you want to start off with this would be what you do. So if you'd rather have a lot of friends in charisma and prestige over being sneaky and dreaded, you want to do diplomacy. So you could do some of the similar things in diplomacy. Like you can offer somebody to become your vassal as a result of diplomacy. So instead of trying to conquer their land or murder them, you could just befriend them and they want to be your vassal just because you're friends. So that can happen as well. Then there's stewardship. So this is all about managing your domain. So it has the ability for more taxes or lower construction costs. It can reduce the time to build buildings. If you already have like your empire, you've gone as far as you think you're going to go, and you just want to make it really tall and build it up and kind of thrive within what you have, this is a great way to do it. So as you're developing characters and playing with characters and you get somebody that's a high steward, that's what they can do, is they can really build up the land you already have. And then every 5 stewardship skills, so you can see it here, stewardship, every 5 gives you one more domain title without a penalty. So if you naturally would have 3, you can have 3 titles, and you have a stewardship of 5. Now you can have 4 titles that you can own and rule over without a penalty that you personally own. So you could have a kingdom of 24 domain titles, but you can only own 4 of them in that case. So we'll get more into that. Then you got martial. This is the military. This is something a lot of people like playing with for sure. It's all about waging war, commanding armies, getting an advantage on the battlefield as a commander. Even though the game isn't about painting a map at some point, only the sword can do the talking, right? So if you love war, this is kind of your trait. You're going to be able to do a lot with this. And then you have the learning education, and this is all about literacy and wisdom, so it can improve your culture by discovering advancements more quickly. It can reform your faith. You can build relationships with other cultures as a result of this. And I think as Paradox releases more DLCs for Crusader Kings 3, I think you're going to see more learning, that education trait really come out, where I think more people are going to jump into that because there is going to take more learning at some point. So it gives a bonus, and it gives a bonus to your monthly piety, and we'll look at that. So what we're going to choose as our trait here is we're going to choose Mastermind Philosopher, because once again, we're kind of the big boy in West Africa, and so we're going to naturally have a lot of armies and a lot of ability. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to advance discovery in our nation more quickly as a result, to get to that feudal era, which is very key in competing with nations and cultures outside of West Africa. So it's going to be very important. Alrighty, now we can do personality traits. So a personality trait really, it says who your character is. So if you have a decision to make in game, and it can be anything, any decision, and that decision will play out in multiple options, and depending on your education and personality is how well you will make your decision and whether you will take on stress. You might be able to lose stress as a result. You might lose a lot of stress. You might gain a lot of stress depending on the personalities you have. So let's add one in here just to be able to show you some of these traits. You'll see how wrathful. Now remember, it's a specific culture. It's a specific religion, and how that religion plays out in its culture will make different personality traits desirable, like they really enjoy having people like this in the culture, or it'll make that a negative effect. So you can see if it has a red box around that within your religion and culture, it's viewed negatively. So wrathful, you can see here, it's sinful to the bidaeus. So the opinion of anybody that's your religion is -10, which is not good. You want people to like you. And then your piety is -1, which is not good for us because we want a lot of piety. We want a lot of learning. We want that with who we're going to be. So you'd stay away from something like wrathful. Now, if you're going military or you're in a culture that's very militaristic, this wrathful is probably one you're going to want because it gives you a lot of martial right here. All right. But what we're going to choose for our first one is temperate. And the reason we're going to go temperate is it gives us a small boost in health. And then the other key is it gives us some stewardship. And so we get closer to another bonus of being able to own another title here. Then secondly, we're going to choose diligent right here. Now, the reason I like diligent is I think it's one of the most valuable personality traits in the game. You get points for so much. Like it costs you 40 points, customization points, but you get 2 diplomacy, 3 stewardship, and 3 learning. All really, really good things. Now, you don't take as much stress loss, but if you avoid making decisions that would cause stress, that's okay. It's just when you lose stress, you don't lose as much, but if you don't take on a lot of stress, it doesn't matter. And then it unlocks this decision of develop capital decision. That is a big deal. That will cause you to take on stress if you do this decision, but it develops your capital much, much faster, and development is key, as we'll learn throughout this play. So let's choose diligent. And then finally, let's choose humble. And the reason we're going to go humble is because it's got that green box around it. It's viewed as virtuous to bidaeus, so we get an automatic +10 from everybody in our religion. That's important, and then it gives us more piety so that we can reform our faith. We're gonna see in our lifetime if we can reform our faith. We might be able to, we might not, but we'll see. And then it also gives us, it's technically giving us 1.5 piety a month because it naturally gives half, but then we get 1 more for the bidaeus. And then our opinion of our vassals. So we're going to have a lot of vassals being a king, and the opinion of our vassals is automatically +10, so that helps keep people, our vassals, happy. And then our clergy, it keeps them happy because it gives a +10. So that's why we're going to choose that. All right, so those are the personality traits we're going to go with. Generally, every character within the game has 3 personality traits. You will see some with 2, and it probably means that somewhere along the line they lost a trait because they kept going against it, or a decision took it away. Sometimes you'll see 4, and generally if you see 4, you'll see brave as one of those traits, and the reason they got that is because they were so valiant in battle. They eventually earned the trait brave, and so it got added in for them. That can happen. Generally, though, you're going to always see 3 is going to happen most of the time. All right, let's jump into other traits. So these traits can be earned. Almost every one of these are earned throughout the game. So you've got congenital traits, which if you have those types of traits, you can pass it down throughout your generations because they always have that genetic trait within them. And we're going to actually choose one of those That's near the bottom here. Where is it at? There it is. So we're going to choose giant. Now you can see it gives us prowess. Prowess is one of those skills that allows you to fight better. And in a tribal government, you're gonna want to be able to defend yourself. You're going to want to be able to attack things, because tribal governments, it's easy to attack things. It's easy to have conflict even within your vassals, and so you're going to want to make sure you can defend yourself to some level. So that you want that prowess, and as you get to pass down giant, like if you're able to pass it down generation to generation and keep that trait within your family, what it does is it allows, so you might come across a future player heir, like it might be your grandson, great-grandson, whatever, that has a high martial skill, and then this would naturally give them a boost to that prowess as well. So it benefits generations to come, and it's only 20. There is a minor penalty on health, but remember, we're temperate, so we have a small boost on health, so that kind of counteracts it there. Our attraction opinion goes down. I'm not worried about -5 though. Here, our vassal opinion, +5. So now we have +15 from our vassal opinion due to being humble and due to this giant characteristic. And then the tribal ruler opinion. So, and everybody around us is tribal until you get to like very far North Africa or into East Africa. Everybody's tribal in the early game. And so you get that +10 bump for people around you, which is useful in this type of playthrough. Then you've got physical traits, you've got lifestyle traits. So let's just look at some of these. So these are lifestyle traits. You can earn them in the game. So like if you go to a lot of feasts, you'll get the Reveler trait at some point because you've gone to so many. Blade Master, if you do a lot of dueling, you can get this Blade Master trait. Which to do that, you're going to need kind of a high prowess. Hunter, so if you go on a lot of hunts, you can earn this. Then you've got these lifestyle traits. So all of these, starting with strategist and going down, you can earn them in your lifestyle tree as you, so our lifestyle is education. So we'll be able to earn theologian, scholar, whole of body. We can earn that in-game. So we could add it now, but it was just, to me, it's a waste of customization points because we're going to eventually get it in the game anyway. So we're going to move on. You've got health traits here where you can become melancholic, lunatic, possessed. That can happen as a result of, in-game things. These 5 are childhood traits. Each child, when they're born, gets a certain trait. So like if they get the trait rowdy, they're going to be naturally bent towards being martial or intrigue, and then you educate them based off their childhood trait. Then if you're sick or you get injured, you got traits. There's all kind. We're going to add in a coping mechanism trait, which is journaler. It gives us +1 in learning. It also gives us more stress loss to counteract what we're not going to get with being diligent. So we'll add that in, and let's add in one more. All right, finally we'll add in miracle worker. Now this gives us more learning. You can earn this in game if you go on a lot of pilgrimages, which we will probably go on a pilgrimage just to keep earning piety, so we could eventually get this as it is. But it's helpful to have that +4 early, and so we're just going to throw it in here. Now you can see we've got 381 out of 400, so we'll come down here. Let's see what we can add. We've got 10 in stewardship too. That's going to help get that extra bonus. Let's just see what it's like to add. Yeah, we'll go to 9. We'll go to 9 martial to give us some more troops, extra troops. It gives you... The key here, diplomacy gives you more prestige, martial gives you more levies for battles, stewardship is going to give you more taxes, intrigue is going to give you more ability to be sneaky and find out secrets and murder people and set up all of that. And then learning is going to give you a bonus in piety to advance your culture and to reform your faith. And then prowess just makes you, you duel better, you fight better. That's what it is. We are not going to add in our family because we can do that even before unpausing anything in the game. All right, so that will set up our character, and we will finalize it. We'll submit it, and then we will go in to start our game. And this is where we're going to leave off here for this episode. For episode 2, we're going to jump into what you would do, like right from the get-go before you even have to unpause. Like, what does the game screen look like? What are all these different icons? We're going to jump into that. If you could do me a favor and hit the like button or subscribe, that would really help me out. And look forward to seeing you next time.